What an incredible night in Smashville. Pekka Rinne's number up to the Bridgestone Arena Raptors. There forever. We will talk about the emotional ceremony, some of our favorite bits of the night. Plus, the Preds actually played a hockey game, and it was a kind of a mixed bag, but hey, they won. We're now talking about a Preds winning streak. We'll talk about some of the moments that shaped the game and look ahead to this weekend's wild Stadium Series atmosphere. It's going to be a fun atmosphere here in Nashville. We'll preview that coming up today on a busy Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thank you for joining us today on the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime who got to witness all the glory of last night in person. And how was it?
Oh my gosh. Just amazing. It's hard to find the words. It was absolutely incredible. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com and had a great night at Bridgestone.
Yeah, I want to start with the Pekka Rinne jersey retirement ceremony. That's, of course, kind of what everybody is talking about in Smashville today. The big moment from last night. It really didn't matter what happened in the game, although the win was nice.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get too much into the podcast, I just got to ask, like, you were there, like, you got to witness all of this in person. What was the energy like inside the arena?
I will say, now I wasn't there for any of the Stanley Cup final games. So, caveat, I wasn't there for that. But I've never been at Bridgestone where it was the way it was last night. And it was energy, but it really was. And I know this sounds hokey, but it was a complete and total love fest. Like, this crowd so appreciated Pekka Rinne, and the best way they knew how to convey that was through noise. So it was so loud, just such an amazing, like, raising the hair on your arms kind of atmosphere last night. It was magical. And I do want to say the Nashville Predators, for never having done anything quite like this, they threw an incredible party. They did such a fantastic job with this whole evening and event.
Yeah, there was not one thing I would change about that ceremony, from both Pekka's impact on the ice when they highlighted that to a lot of emphasis on what he did off the ice. I'm so glad they mentioned the 365 Pediatric Fund. I'm so glad that they kind of went in depth to his work with the Best Buddies program and how Barry Trotz kind of got him into that, gave his buddy a birthday shout out. So that was a fun moment.
Yeah.
To all the tribute videos, to his speech in particular, having Roman Josi, who was, arguably maybe his best friend on the team, be the one that introduced him. The part that got me, I mean, there's so many good moments. We saw Juuse Saros tearing up on the bench a little bit when he was mentioned. Ben Vanderklok, who's the Preds goaltending coach, visibly, looked like he was trying to choke back tears, as Pekka mentioned, how he kind of helped rebuild his career and keep it going after his hip injury. To me, the moment that got me was probably the moment that got Pekka the most. And that was talking about his son, Paulus. Obviously, as Anne is you're a mother, you probably know that babies that are yay big probably don't remember too much about where they are or what they're doing when they're 1 year old. So when Pekka turned and talked to Paulus and said, you know what, you probably have no idea what's going on right now, but I can't wait to take you back to Bridgestone Arena someday in the future, point to my banner up in the the rafters and tell you like all the stories from me playing for the Predators. And that was like the moment that it looked like Pekka himself got a little bit choked up on. That to me was the moment. I think I was like, oh man, this is what got me. This is what got me.
Yeah, that was such a huge moment. And, of course, the mom in me was just dying over how adorable little Paulus Rinne is. And what's so funny is I thought about, this little boy is going to grow up and come back to Nashville, and all of a sudden he's going to have all these aunties and uncles that he just really doesn't know who are going to want to welcome him. And, he's just now, heaven help this child, part of this whole Nashville Predators community. And so it really was such a special moment. And I think Pekka has expressed how much he is loving parenthood and how special this time and this season in his life is, and how much time he wants to dedicate to being a dad. And so, yeah, that moment I think was amazing. For me, just the last line of his speech where he said, "Nashville will always be my home and I will always be a Nashville Predator." And I mean, it was just like, just tears, the kind that just shoot out. They don't fall down, they shoot out. So it was really, it was an amazing expression of appreciation and love for Pekka Rinne. But he also, for somebody who doesn't like the spotlight and doesn't like to be singled out, he really did a wonderful job of communicating his appreciation back to Nashville. And it just was a very two-way admiration party for sure.
Yeah, you kind of saw that when they announced they were going to give Pekka Rinne a statue
at
Bridgestone Arena. You kind of saw him turn to his partner Erica and just go, "Really? Come on!" Something like that. Like, oh, is this necessary?
I'm afraid so.
Yeah, the comments on Twitter for this have been fantastic. One has been, the unfortunate, like the giant Nathan Bedford Forrest statue, the notorious one on 65. Somebody suggested taking Forrest down and just putting like Pekka Rinne riding Nash instead. So somebody else said, the square in Franklin, replace that statue with one of just Pekka Rinne standing up. So I'm loving all the Twitter suggestions for this. But yeah, you can definitely tell Pekka Rinne was like, I'm here just to, see some old friends and say hi to the fans. He's like, I really don't want to be a part of this. And to me, the biggest mood, the one that made like Pekka Rinne most relatable to me, whenever they kept showing him in the box next to Kimmo Timonen, and every time they showed him, the fans would have to like stop and give like a standing ovation and cheer and everything. Pekka Rinne was always like mid-bite of a piece of food. And it was just like every time he was like had to put like the fork down and like do the polite little wave.
Yes.
And I was like, I have never been related to somebody more than Pekka Rinne being annoyed that he has to stop his dinner after a long day to say hi to people.
Well, and it was so great after, so they go through this ceremony and everybody is just heaping praise on Pekka Rinne. And, that's just not his jam necessarily. But he knew he had to, bear up under it. And they go and they raise the banner, and it's Pekka and Erica and little Paulus. And it's just this beautiful shot. And they turn and you just see them go right through the Nash head. They're like, we out. You can tell he was like, I have taken all I can take. This is too much, and out they went. But yeah, it was an amazing night. I thought the Predators, like I said, did so many great little things. They had T-shirts for everyone. They handed out these little banners, which I thought were so cute, so cool. They handed them out to everybody. And then when the players came out, they all came out in number 35 jerseys, which was really, really great. I will tell you, there was a funny moment because the team came out, and of course everybody cheered because they had the number 35 jerseys on. And then, bless his heart, Michael McCarron came out late. Well, because he is so tall and gangly and wearing a number 35 jersey, everybody in the stands was kind of like, Pekka Rinne's out for warm-ups. And it took a while, I think, for the crowd to go, oh, Oh, wait. No, that's Michael McCarron. Okay, never mind. Because I was thinking to myself, John Hines is not going to let Pekka Rinne go out there and warm up with the team before the big Dallas game, because there really was an important game after the Pekka Rinne retirement ceremony.
What I wanted to know is if, God forbid, Juuse Saros got hurt and then David Riddick got hurt, is Pekka Rinne the emergency backup goalie in that situation?
I mean,
Like, does he have to put the fork down again and like begrudgingly go from the press box down to like the ice and be like, okay,
fine.
I guess I'll bail out the team again. I mean, he certainly is in shape to still do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, more from this in a second. And as you mentioned, there actually was a pretty important hockey game for a number of reasons. More on that in just a second. But first, though, want to mention today's show is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. If Pekka Rinne was eating a Built Bar in the press box last night, he would not have put the fork down. He would have told everybody to shut up. Let me finish my snack. That is because Built Bars are protein bars that taste like candy bars. It feels like you're eating a dessert, even though you're eating something actually kind of healthy. How about this? Have you tried Biltbar Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow, fluffy, marshmallowy, not just a protein bar. They're a treat. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. Kind of remind me a little bit of those like marshmallow eggs you get around Easter. Very delicious, but here's the catch. It's low in calories, low in sugar, low in net carbs, and high in protein. And there's a lot of different flavors too. There's cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. If marshmallow's not really your thing, they got plenty of normal flavors like mint brownie, cherry barcia, raspberry chocolate, white chocolate cookies and cream. So there's something almost for every taste. If you don't believe me, you can try it yourself. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That is promo code LOCKED15, all one word. That gets you 15% off at built.com. Yeah, and we're talking about last night's wild night for the Nashville Predators, both in terms of Pekka Rinne getting his jersey retired and a pretty important Dallas Stars game.
Yes.
We usually lead off with this, Anne, but let's get back to it. What is your one word to describe, let's say, the entirety of the night? Instead of just the game, the entirety of the night.
Yeah. So when I think about how this night went, I kind of think back to Pekka's last game. And the word that comes to mind is fairy tale. You know, this really was a sort of a beautiful movie ending fairy tale to Pekka Rinne's career. And then also that the Nashville Predators were able to get a win against the Dallas Stars. And really everything, it was not the prettiest win.
No, it wasn't.
It was not the prettiest win, but in the end, the final chapter, everybody lived happily ever after. And so for me, it was sort of a fairy tale night at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, I think the word I would use is fitting, because this is kind of a fitting tribute to Pekka Rinne. You know, in terms of the game, this was another game in which, honestly, and I'll be honest, Anne, I don't think the Predators should have won. Because I think they were outplayed pretty handily by the Dallas Stars during certain parts of the night. But Juuse Saros comes out with one of his best performances in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
If we're being honest, and shuts the door, keeps Nashville in it. And so it's fitting that Pekka Rinne's adult son, mustache adult son, is the one that kind of steps up and steals the win, kind of salvages the night for the Nashville Predators and gives fans something fun to go home with. Because, well, you know what? I'll just pose this as a question, Anne. Do you think if the Stars had won, that takes a little bit of the wind out of the sails for fans at that game?
Yeah, I think it does. And the other thing that I think that it would have done is it would have made everybody a little more nervous for Saturday's game, not just because of the on ice thing. But I think there was, at least for me, and I think for some other people that I had talked to, this sense of how are the Nashville Predators going to do being kind of out of the routine, out of the groove, special event, high emotion? How are they going to be able to channel that and funnel that and, come away with a win? If they don't do that, is the Stadium Series going to be an event that's a little too big or clunky emotionally for this team to manage? And so getting this win, I think, sort of eased a number of fears that people had. And I do think that it would have taken some of the shine away. I think everybody on that team loves Pekka and wants to win this game. Like, they wanted to win this game for him. I think they really wanted to give him that with his family here and all of these, Predators that came back. So yeah, I think it would have really sort of taken a little bit of the magic away. I don't know. What do you think, Nick? Do you think it would have affected the vibe?
I think it does a little bit, especially
Mhm.
since the team right now is so much under the microscope, especially as teams fans are trying to navigate the Philip Forsberg news and
Yeah.
determine, hey, are we a cup contender? Like, do we have a chance? Is it going to be worth it to try to keep him around to make one more run, or should we get something for him? So I think it's, players are a little bit more hyper focused on that right now. The other reason it was big is because Nashville entered the night 4 points ahead of the Stars, but the Stars had a game in hand. So doing the math there, if the Stars had won, they basically would have had, their fate in their hands, so to speak. And again, with 2 whole months left in the NHL season, it's a little bit early to talk about, playoff fates and stuff like that. But, you don't want the other team to kind of get that game in hand advantage where, all they need to do is, even if, it's one of those situations where even if you win out, it doesn't matter because if the other team wins out, then they're going to leapfrog.
Right.
So that's important just to kind of keep some ground there. And as we mentioned, this was a very important stretch for the Nashville Predators. 2 very tough back-to-back games in Florida and Dallas.
Yes.
Tampa, who was one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now, that's who they play in the Stadium Series. So you got to pick up some points in this stretch run. And that's why I think it was important that the Preds did that last night. Couple of finer points from the game last night, because it as we mentioned, it wasn't a pretty game.
Perfect.
No. It was kind of a mess, if we're being honest, from the Nashville Predators. Funny enough, I think back to like some of those 2 losses against Carolina, Washington last week, and I would say this is probably actually, in terms of performance wise, one of the worst games I've seen the Preds play since the All-Star break, but it's the one where they somehow snuck out a 2-1 win. And so I think it just goes to show you hockey is a little bit weird. What stood out to you game-wise? Like what was maybe the biggest factors why the Preds were a little bit sloppy last night?
I think one of the things that was very frustrating is I think we saw that second period dip that we've kind of talked about a little bit on the show, where Nashville can come out and they start playing in the first period. They play pretty well. They kind of are finding their identity, and something happens in that second period where they're almost knocked off their game. And I think we saw that. The other thing that in the second period that I thought was really frustrating was when you're given 8 minutes of power play time, they just couldn't. I mean, Dallas had Nashville's number when it came to special teams last night. They could not get anything going. They really struggled to even get a number of good shots or good looks, even not even shots. I mean, just good looks and getting set up. And so for me, I feel like when you're given that man advantage repeatedly in a period and you don't capitalize on it, I think that changes sort of the energy of the game. And I feel like for a lot of this game, Dallas was sort of setting the tempo and setting the pace. That second period, I think, really hurt Nashville.
Yeah, and when you have 10 minutes of power play time and you only get 4 power play shots, with 2 of those coming on the final one,
Yeah.
as I think somebody pointed out, they only had 1 shot on goal during that 4-minute power play sequence when Ben got in the box. That was a concern, and it wasn't, anything with formation or anything like that, but it was just, the passes were a little bit off. They would have a good play to get somebody in the open ice and the puck would bounce, or they couldn't control the puck, so they couldn't get a shot off. A lot of, shots on net kind of deflecting wide, or passes not getting on target. So there was kind of a lot of stuff going on there that maybe a little bit of concern in this game. Also, Dallas is just a solid penalty killing unit as well.
For sure.
So that's something to mention. On the other end, though, let's talk about the Predators penalty killing unit, because that, to me, those were the stars of the game last night for Nashville, I think. Especially that last 4-on-3 in overtime.
Oh, gosh.
Where Colton Sissons, Matt Benning, and Matthias Ekholm were on that ice in their own zone for that entire 2-minute sequence. Some of the best defensive hockey I've seen from the Predators, because really you watch it, and Dallas really, even with 4-on-3, didn't really get a good look at the net. It wasn't just, Saros coming up with a bunch of big saves. This was like that penalty killing unit not even giving Dallas good looks.
Yeah. And one of the things too is that Dallas really, for whatever reason, they had done well with their passing through the game, but they got into that overtime power play. And we were very fortunate. Some of their passes just didn't connect because they were off target. And that really helped out a little bit. But I would agree with you. I think those 3 on that penalty kill really won the game in a lot of ways for Nashville. That was such a great opportunity, and I think just the air went out of everybody's lungs when Granlund was called for that trip, and it felt like a little bit of a soft call, but we're going to let that go.
Well, I don't know. I think I agree with the call, because I think it was a trip. I guess that's a different debate for the other day.
Yeah. But and here's the thing, you have to play the game that's called, whether they like the call or not, they have to kill the penalty. They don't get to, cry about it. And I think they did such a solid job. And like you said, for 2 minutes of that penalty, and I think once they killed that penalty off, whether it was going to end in the overtime or in a shootout, I think Nashville, that gave them a little bit of momentum back, where I feel like they've kind of had to claw their way into this game for a lot of the 60 minutes of regulation time.
Yeah. Well, as we mentioned, there's another big game for the Predators coming up Saturday, the Stadium series. Still need to talk about that. And it's Friday, and so you got some cookies to give out.
I do. Fridays are cookie day for sure. But first, we want to talk about our friends at BetOnline. Football may be over and done for this season, but basketball is in full swing for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, betonline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball, of course. BetOnline.net is your source for all things hockey. They have boxing and UFC odds. They had tons of Olympic coverage and information coming up on the Paralympics as well. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Well, we had a big night with Pekka Rinne's jersey retirement ceremony, and we're going to have a big, I guess, weekend starting tonight, because there's a lot of festivities going on tonight. Renegades of Puck's home base freakout, which you and I are both going to attend. First time we gotta get to see each other face to face.
It's going to be so real.
It is going to be so real. The Stadium series this weekend, the Predators go outdoor tomorrow night to take on the Tamp Bay Lightning at Nissan Stadium. As we mentioned, festivities kind of starting tonight all the way through the rest of the weekend. And this is another game that, sort of like this last one against Dallas, you're going to have to kind of manage the weirdness, sort of the novelty feel of it with being able to play actual hockey. Because as we mentioned, the Predators are still in a very important stretch run, and you're going to need to pick up points wherever you can here.
Yeah, and this game is going to be a challenge to pick up points. And I agree with what you said. This is going to be a lot about managing atmosphere and emotion for the Nashville Predators. We saw that they did it pretty successfully. They got 2 points. Looks wise, we'll put that aside. They got 2 points against Dallas. So this is something we know that they can do. But this team, this Tampa Bay team, this is a good team. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're on a 3-game win streak, but they are beatable. And so I think Nashville is going to have to clean up some things from last night's game and really attack Tampa Bay a little bit differently than they did against Dallas if they want to come away with, like you said, a critical 2 points.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, their only 2 losses in the last month were Vegas, who's first place in a shootout, and Colorado, who, as we know, has been on a massive run really since the end of that COVID/holiday break in December. So you look at Tampa Bay, and they're firing on all cylinders right now. You can kind of look and make an argument that maybe their schedule hasn't been as tough as,
very true,
let's say, the one the Preds are playing right now. But I mean, what else can we possibly say to get you ready for the Tampa Bay Lightning? I mean, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. You look up and down the lineup, and there are just so many weapons. And even when it seems like they lose weapons, Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman left in free agency this year, there always seems to be somebody that just steps up. Alex Killorn, we sort of forgot about him. He was kind of buried on the fourth line these last 2 Stanley Cup final runs. He is on pace for a career high in points right now. He has 44 points in 50 games this season. I remember this is a guy on the fourth line last year.
Yes.
Cup run. They have Corey Perry, who should be interesting.
We're going to talk about
outdoor game with Corey Perry in it again.
I think we need to put a pin in that one because there's a hitch in the giddy up over that. Now let's make good choices, but let's remember.
Let's remember. I will say, if that happens again this time, there's a few more Tanner Jeannots on the roster to kind of, I guess, discourage that
strongly. Yeah, a little Tanner Jeannot, Michael McCarron sandwich right there would clear things up.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody kind of knows about Tampa, and I mean, they have so many star players all up and down the roster. This is going to be a game that really tests the Predators' depth, because you look and there's not really an area where you look at and say, oh yeah, the Preds have a clear advantage here. They're going to need to utilize that. This is one where it's like at least 50-50 on all 4 lines and all 4 D pairs and in goal. I mean, how often do you go into a game with Juuse Saros and say, okay, they might have a goaltending advantage? The other team.
Well, and you look at Andre Vasilevskiy, and this is just somebody who is consistently solid in net. I mean, both of the Stanley Cup wins, this is somebody who has played really strong. He's got a 2.29 goals against average. He's .921 save percentage. The Nashville Predators are really going to have to move him if they want to stand a chance of getting something past him. He is so solid in net. They're going to have to get creative, and they're going to have to move the puck quickly and effectively if they want to beat Vasilevskiy, because he is just, like you said, very rarely do you come into a game and think, wow, Juuse Saros is in net. They may have somebody equal or better in net. This is that game. And so we're going to need players like Matt Duchene. We're going to need players like Philip Forsberg, to really be their creative goal scoring best to beat Vasilevskiy in this game.
What do you think winds up ultimately being the X factor in this outdoor game, aside from just kind of managing the novelty of it? In terms of on ice stuff, what do you think might be an X factor here?
I think special teams, even though again these are two very evenly matched teams when it comes to special teams, I think Nashville is going to have to play really responsible. I don't think that they can give any opportunities. So I think it's going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes. And that's a tough hockey game to play under normal circumstances. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this shakes out in such a unique environment.
Yeah, for me, it's gotta be the headliners. It's gotta be Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, because we know guys like Steven Stamkos, Braden
Oh yeah.
are going to get their chances in this game. And we know Tampa Bay's got some of the best depth in the entire NHL. The Preds need their stars to be the stars in this game. They need big nights from their big guns, and they're going to need Juuse Saros to stand on his head again, because we know Tampa's going to get chances. We have to have another big night from Juuse Saros, a night that, as we saw against Dallas, we know he's capable of making. But that, to me, like if Philip Forsberg, Mikael Granlund, Matt Duchene, those kind of guys are taken out of this game, it is going to be a big hill to climb. So we need to see some big star level performances from those guys.
I would agree with that for sure. And secondary scoring is going to be important, but I agree with you. I think if we can get that top line firing, I think that's going to be a real key to carrying this team and keeping things in close, keeping the game close enough that Nashville can pull out a win, kind of in the third period where they tend to play pretty strong hockey.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting for sure. As we mentioned, festivities really from here on out for the rest of the weekend. We got Renegades of Puck's home base freakout tonight at the Tailgate Brewery on the Music Row, their Music Row location. Some of us will be there. Some of our On the Forecheck friends will be there. So be sure to come out, say us hi. Say us hi. That's not a sentence. I'm just so excited that I'm just speaking nonsense right now. And then tomorrow, starting around 3 o'clock, that's when the team buses are going to come to Nissan Stadium. NHL has encouraged fans to come out to Gate 9 to sort of greet teams as they come in. Gates for the stadium open at 4:30 tomorrow, and then puck drop at 6:30, and of course, lots of pregame festivities and stuff. Before then, you're going to want to see the intros, the anthems, all that fun stuff. So yeah, big night for Nashville. Even if you don't have tickets to the game, be sure to go downtown, enjoy some of the pregame, some of the atmosphere. It's going to be a fun night.
It is.
And as I've known in my 30 years of being a Nashvilleian, Nashville knows how to throw a party. So you're going to want to be a part of this event. That's for sure.
Yes, it's going to be great. So, and like Nick said, we'll be there. We'll have coverage on Monday of, not only just the game, but the atmosphere, the experience there. So we'll have full coverage for you, but take a minute and come downtown and enjoy it yourself. Like Nick said, even if you don't have tickets, it's going to be well worth mingling in Smashville.
Yeah. Real quick, Ann, it's Friday. You give out cookies every week to your player of the week. Who gets it this week?
This week, I'm going rogue. I'm not going with a player. I am giving cookies to Pekka Rinne's partner, Erica. Let's hear it for the wives and girlfriends and partners of these players who hold down the fort, who are running the children here, there, and everywhere, and who are supporting their players while they pursue their dreams. So shout out to the women of Smashville.
Absolutely love that shout out as well. And I'm sure she will be happy, as any new mom would, to have some cookies to enjoy while she's putting up with a fussy Paulus.
There you go.
And where can people find your work?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com as well. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. Also, be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at LO_Predators. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of today's show and any of the topics we discussed. And we'll see you back here Monday. Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every single day this week. We'll be back Monday with a in-depth recap of the Stadium Series weekend. See you, everybody.